Sorry, I had you on mute.
Oh, okay.
How are you?
Good.
All right, well, welcome. It is August 12th, 2020. It is 3:31 in the afternoon. We're in our work session of our regular scheduled board meeting. All board members are present. It is of note, though, that Lee's joining us remotely. All right. Superintendent, oh, doesn't know it's me, so excuse me, now you can.
Your computer doesn't like social distancing?
No, it just can't figure out the mask part yet.
Okay, for work session, we have presentation from Naylor Wentworth Lund and our architectural team and our construction team regarding Helper Middle School. So I'm going to try it this way because it'll share over the video better. So I haven't tested this out to see. Is that the first slide?
I think there's a couple back.
I don't know how to go back.
Right your arrows. Down the bottom.
Oh, yeah,
Right
there
in
we
the
go.
middle on the bottom.
All right, there we go.
Please.
Leave this on, I don't know the rules.
As long as you're 6 feet away, you can take it off if you like.
So can we ask Lee, can you see the presentation?
Yes, I can.
Great, thank you.
All right, so about a month ago, I came down, John and I were down, we talked a little bit about the renovation and the cost of that versus potentially an addition to replace the classroom section of the building. And we had done, so maybe move forward a little bit, Lance. So just a quick kind of recap of some other things we've seen. Go one more slide. This is an aerial view. What's in orange is the original 1936 building. What's in purple was the addition in early 50s, I believe. And this just to give you an idea of kind of what we're talking about as what would maybe become replaced versus would stay. So jumping forward again, just again wanted to show that's that original 1936 building that we all just know and really love. I think it's an amazing building, but we know being 80 some years old now, there are some things that we just can't repair in it even during the renovation. So let's move forward one more. This is the drawing I had shown a month ago, and I think very wisely you guys said, hey, let's look at this a little further. We can't make this decision on a single line drawing. And so we really appreciated that, and hearing that maybe it was something you wanted to see more. So we actually gone a couple steps further and wanted to present that to you today. One thing that we've really come to enjoy being at that site so much is the views to the north. And John and I talk about every time we go through that area that because of the way the freeway is, you sort of lose the fact that this is the view you have from Helper until you're right there, especially at this middle school site. So trying to capture those views, that vista, that bluff there is just, it's pretty amazing. And I think John said it once, if this was anywhere else in the United States, it would be some national, or some state park, but because it's in Utah, maybe is the 15th or 16th one of these, best one of these, so it just happens not to be that, but it's breathtaking, really. So jumping one more. So we went back and sort of challenged what we had drawn. I'm gonna pull this off just a little so I can speak a little better. That angled version we had was really just trying to capture where we could build. But as we started thinking about how relationships of the spaces came together, we were just sketching and kind of thinking about, again, those views. And really, the views are directly to the north. The north is up on this. You can see out of the art room, which is that furthest north room, out of the commons, and really trying to capture views to the north and a bit to the east, so north and northeast. So this is where our sketches kind of took us, and we started developing a little further. As you know, the site, again, we kind of pared that down. We've got some site property lines there to kind of give you an idea where our constraints were. The dashed area in white is the existing building as it sits now with the industrial arts. So this is kind of how we saw the phasing of the construction to happen if we do this addition.
Sorry, we're having a little technical difficulty with Lee being able to see. So I'm going to stop presenting for just a second. And then I'm going to present a window. We'll select that one. And that's the one we're sharing.
I can see now.
You can see the presentation.
I can see your slide now. I wasn't seeing them. It went away, but I can see it now.
Okay, great. We should be good now. Sorry about that.
So then this is that site as we know. So we wanted, looking at that new sketch that we had done rather than sort of that angled piece and also looking at that sketch with some of our engineers and talking about a little more efficiency and having all those angles, we started to develop that sketch into a more hard line drawing if you want to move forward. This would be the original. That's where that addition would sit, kind of still at the back, kind of east side against the gym, and then a wing, if you will, that would run north, currently parallel to the existing classroom piece. And then the second, we call that phase two. It's really just the second slide of how we see things. And then the next slide would be the portion of the building that would then remain or be renovated, which is the main gym space and the about 3 classrooms that are flanking that on the west side of the gym. There's a stairwell there and a toilet room as well as an existing elevator, but we do show a new elevator as well in this new addition. And then kind of the final slide there is how we see that site sort of wrapping up. And we feel like the bus lane at this point would remain the one that's going in now, would remain as buses. We develop a bit of a parent drop off right there into that courtyard, and then some about 40 parking stalls to the north. We're still playing with it. We think the site still needs to be massaged. There's a lot of discussion that we think needs to be had with both the administration of the school and the district. But what this tells us is we know that it works on the site. We kind of extend a road that's sort of partially there now. We improve that. We need some fire access to the backside of the building. It's not quite enough room back there to create a turnaround. So we take that access road through the site. That could be also used for deliveries. There's the kitchen delivery back there. There's about 5 parking stalls for maybe some kitchen staff or custodial staff here. Yeah, right there. And then that other little blue square is some outdoor storage that we lose by doing this addition against the building. So between that and a little additional storage that's on the building now and our addition, we think we meet the storage that is there currently. Let's move forward a little more to kind of jump into what the plans are. So you see the gym, the existing gym and the classroom to the side. The plan for now, and I think this needs a little bit of massaging, making sure that we're kind of working through with all the administration. Band would stay where it is because it's kind of far away from the other classrooms, so they can be loud and do their thing and not be interrupting. The current classroom above there would become, I think we call that resource now, with some storage off that as well. You can see we kind of extend a hallway there. That's a piece of the building that's not there now. It's kind of where the kitchen is now, but we would extend that to that existing piece. This main box here is the administration. Get back to the mic so Lee can hear. The administration would be there. We would develop a secure entry like we're seeing, even like what we're doing at the high school edition now. It would force the visitor to come into the office and then be buzzed into the school. Above that would be an art room. Across the hall would be the more typical classrooms, if you will. Below that is media center. And then wrapping around that corner is a learning stair, and we have a photo or a rendering to show you kind of what we see that looking like. A stair that goes upstairs, and then the commons directly below, commons and cafeteria, sort of shared space, which we like being kind of tied to the media center and even visible from the admin area. It kind of puts all that right at the hub of the school. Kitchen directly south of that, and then a home ec or There's maybe, fax classroom, however we want to call it, with some sewing and some kitchen sort of prep space. And then that gray bar that's against the existing building would be some toilet room, mechanical, electrical, a little bit of storage, some of that utilitarian space that doesn't need that exterior window. So we kind of tuck that against the existing building. Let's jump upstairs and then we'll look at the questions. So upstairs, immediately above the admin area is a science room with kind of a shared classroom lab. So there's kind of lab space around the perimeter with some classroom in the middle. And that small room off of that is kind of a prep space for the teacher, kind of also storage to keep those things away from the kids every day. That dark space area next to it would be a faculty toilet room, so get something up on the upper level so they don't always have to be going down to the faculty area. Above that is a kind of a flex classroom. It's really not a program space in the sense that you have it at Helper now. That just was fitting as a nice space. It's a little bit larger than a typical classroom. We think that could be split in half and become two smaller spaces, or that big, or maybe it's flexible and can kind of be either or. We're doing a couple of those over the high school. We probably recall we have a few rooms that can kind of be two different sizes. Across the hall are 4 standard sized classrooms that are about 8, well, 3 of them are 850 and the one on the bottom there is just a little lower than that. And then that space adjacent is again that learning stair, and we'll show you into that. And then 2 more 850-ish square foot classrooms, which is a very good sized classroom. I think your typical classroom at Helper now is under 700 square feet. You might have 1 or 2 that are about 710 and a few that are like 450. So that 850 is going to be a nice sized classroom. And then we're in the existing section, that blue is, we're calling that, the lighter blue is the guidance counselor. We're going to revamp that space. It's where it is now, but we'll revamp it into that space. Some storage, a conference room, and then a drama room that happens right up above the band room in that corner. So programmatically, we're covering all the spaces that are currently in Helper. I think there's even a little extra sort of flex space, if you will, because there's that extra classroom that we don't, it's not programmed now, but it's something that we know will be utilized. You want to jump to one more? Just to give you an idea of the massing, the darker gray is the section of the building that's there now and will remain. That's that larger box in the back, and then that piece on the west. You can kind of start to see the site plan. What this doesn't show is that there actually is a little bit of grade change. So as you fall to the north and the east, that drive might be actually down about 1.5 feet or maybe 2 feet. But the parent drop-off kind of comes in and engages that courtyard, the parking here, and then the bus drop-off right off the street. One more kind of aerial view just to kind of give you a little more close-in bird's eye. What we think is all those spaces to the north, you can see the art room, which is down near that vestibule. We want to take advantage of those views to the north. I personally see sort of a art courtyard, if you will, right outside there. I'm taking a drawing course. I want to draw balance rock quite better than to sit out right outside my classroom. Maybe that yard even becomes a little more formal and is directly tied to that room, is how I sort of see that. We were trying to take advantage of those north views, as you can see. All those north walls we're showing as being somewhat more translucent than the solid walls. Again, this is pretty early. We'll have to develop this with a lot of input. And then a final slide I have is just that learning stair. This is how we sort of envision that learning stair. That view to the north, we're trying to capture that balance rock. We don't know exactly how many kids sit on those seats, but I think it's about 110 or so. Maybe half the population of that school can sit right there on that wood section of steps. And we're essentially standing right outside the kitchen looking at the student commons. So, let's say you have seating for 100 at those tables, and you've got you wouldn't have 100 sitting on those wood steps eating, but you could easily have another 25, 30. And you can imagine how many students could be in there engaged in that space. And I think could be very successful. So upstairs, there's that space is kind of a 2-story space. So the hallway, as it turns down that corner, is kind of a nice almost balcony and sort of a seen and be seen kind of space that it's very important, I think, in the social world that we live in. So any questions? We can flip back to slides and get your thoughts.
If you go back to that 3D, I think it's 1 or 2 slides back.
You got our on this, flip around.
I don't know how to get back.
There's a little ghosted off little arrow.
Off of the bottom
there
of the
we
left, there you go. Right there, the road you said is how about go one forward? That'll give us a better view. So as you leave the drop-off point you had, it would be east by southeast. It looks like, is there about 4 or 5 spaces parked right there at the opening of the building?
That was, when we were looking at it, if you go back one slide, actually, I'll explain. When we were drawing that, we were kind of challenging ourselves and saying, is our ADA stalls close enough? So those are on the site plan, those are actually called as ADA stalls, and we thought maybe they
Perfect.
need to be a little closer.
Perfect.
But-
That was my concern, is all your parking is so far away from the building, there's no place for access.
Yeah, so again, I think that there's a little massaging still to do on exactly how those drives work. I'll tell you one thing that I've thrown out to our team is, what if the currently designed bus lane became the parent drop off, and we reworked the bus lane to kind of use the backside of the school? So again, there's a lot of different ways we could think about how drop off works. I don't know if by today we can have that answer, but I certainly can tell you that the site will work. We know that we've laid enough out that if you guys say, let's move forward, I'm not gonna come back in a month and go, you know what, we messed up, we don't have enough room for this. And so we know it fits. We know there's 40 or so parking stalls, parent drop off works, but there may be a little massaging to what you're seeing today.
So then the road that does go around the building, it appears by the arrows that it's a one-way access.
It's 26 feet wide per the fire code, so
Okay.
that allows for 2 lanes. The arrows were, when I was kind of pushing and saying, if it was a bus lane, that would be the direction they'd have to travel to let the kids out. Maybe they'd let them out kind of right outside the commons. Because to me, if you're letting students off the bus, you know who those students are. They can go in kind of the back door, but you don't want to have a parent drop off or visitor drop off right, in the back of the school, because you always want them going through that secure entry. The one concern that came up was that lane kind of ends up leaving the site kind of in a little bit smaller road neighborhood. And I don't know, we don't want to just force buses into something that we haven't studied a little closer and talk with the city and make sure we're not messing up traffic patterns. But certainly it works for a 2-lane road if we wanted to do that. The way I sort of see it is the section of drive right adjacent to the ADA stalls that I pointed out would have maybe a raised walk so that people parking here could cross that drive without feeling like they were going down in the street back up. And that raised walk would certainly keep people from just, rushing down there. And you could put a gate there as well if you wanted. We've done that before. We put a gate even on this site plan as far back as the ADA stall. So you could go in and do the ADA stall and come out without allowing everybody just to drive around. We don't want to create a sort of racetrack, if you will. So many schools these days have a path all the way around them just for fire. And this site, really, we need to get that road in to make this work.
So what is the minimum width then for that fire access?
26 feet
It is 26, okay.
with some exceptions, but yeah, that's where they want you to be for a fire truck to use it. Assuming it has a hydrant on it, which we think it would, so that's why it's 26 feet.
And then are we going to be putting, since that's going to be your fire lane, are they going to be putting a fire riser back there as well?
We
Does it
think
call
the
for that?
riser room will be back kind of in that utilitarian space. That's something we'll get with the fire marshal and say, where on the site would you want to hook up?
Okay.
FBC, and it's something we'd have to work with them. We've used those roads to use for delivery and for, staff to use. It's not like you can't be on the road, it's just they don't want people
Sure.
parking and limiting that 26-foot wide drive, so. Other questions?
How about Mr. Bradshaw, how are you feeling about this?
Yeah, I'm rather excited.
Just rather.
Come on.
Do you have questions that you'd like to ask her?
Not at the moment. I got a little preview of some of this from Terry. So I was just excited to see what the rest of it.
Love this part. I just want you to stay on this slide all day.
That can happen.
Now, do you
School
put
Texas
electrical
has
outlets so the kids can do their iPads and all that in that section?
Yeah, well, I mean, what we've done recently is actually put some USB ports in those steps.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that'd be great.
And we don't want plugs necessarily.
Yeah, whatever, you do.
That's what we've seen as being successful, is to put just a USB charging station. What we've actually shown in the media center, we haven't gotten so far that we're ready to say this is your media center, but once you're about halfway up those steps, there's enough headroom that we actually kind of create a little bit of a reading nook in the media center that's below the stair and kind of create this almost sort of staggered ceiling, potentially sort of feeling that stairway above you. And we'll have to kind of think through how that exactly works, but we're trying to capture some of the space. The portion that we can't stand under, we think we will develop some chair storage, table or chair storage, so that when you have a big event in the commons, you don't just have to push those tables and chairs up against the walls. We want to find places for those to sort of live, if you will, get out of the way, so you can use that space for a pep rally or a dance or a community event, whatever it may be.
Comments? Lance, Darren?
No, we've been talking regularly with them about these plans. I think personally, I fully support it. I think it makes so much more sense for just a little more investment to be able to get so many more benefits in life out of this building than what we would get with the renovation.
We talk about a little more.
Yeah, that was my next question too. What's the difference between a little more?
Well, I certainly can address that, John, there, or should I just do it from here?
Why don't you come up with the microphone?
So Lee can hear.
Well, so first off, I want to just address overall, just as you've seen this is the first that I'm seeing, and even though I knew some of the plans that Philip has looked at, it's still preliminary. So let me step back and tell you how we got to this point, which is, as we started to do our initial budgets and our initial estimate, the question became, are we doing the right thing? And I know Philip mentioned this in the last meeting, which was, if this were, and this is our litmus test, which is, if this is our taxpayer money, Philip and I lived in Carbon County, are we comfortable with how we're spending your money? And we felt like there was some real opportunity here. So when we looked at our first estimates, we were pushing between the 8 and 9 million range. And where you had allocated the $10 million, we thought there was some opportunity here to get a building that could be a 50 to 70 year building, and push that beyond the point in which you thought you might tear it down in 10 to 15 years. There's also the factor of safety as well. Each of us find ourselves saying, if our kids were in this building, are we comfortable? We're bringing it up to kind of the bare minimum of code with the renovation. With a fully new addition, you're getting a building that is completely compliant, and it's much more safe for the children. So the question is then, well, how much does that extra cost? So we started to look at what we're seeing pricing along the Wasatch Front, which were roughly between the 250 to 275 a square foot range. And so when we started to apply the fact that we would be paying a premium in Carbon County because people are gonna have to travel, and if we allocated in the 325 range, if Philip can keep this down in a certain square footage, and that's gonna be our task actually, is to make sure that we don't come back to you in a few months and say, well, sorry, we miscalculated our budgets and we were wrong. But we feel very comfortable that we're gonna be able to come back to you and say, maybe just over 10 million. We're gonna try and keep that right around that 10 million, which you've already promised the community, that we can give you a much better building that is now a 50 to 70 year building with modern amenities, and it's much more safe. It has a much better commons area. One of our fears was that you would get an old building that looked a little freshened up. A lot of the things that we were gonna add, you didn't see. The new mechanical system, you never would have known was there. We had to put fire sprinklers in there, and almost, in some cases, possibly 2 layers of fire sprinklers. All of the structural work, you would have never known it happened. You would have had a community that possibly could have come in and said, what did you do? And we have no fears with that, but we think we can provide you something in that range. Now, I've worked with Philip several times. I know that Philip he's an architect, and he's gonna want it to look very nice, but he's also a best value architect. So we're gonna work together to make sure that you're getting a product that fits within that budget. We're very close to it, and yet gives you a much better building. Does that answer your questions?
Well, also, can I just speak a little bit to what they've told us about is COVID-19 has been terrible, but it may have given us a little gift here with the bids that are coming in at the high school and the projects that we're doing. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. So we did an elementary school a few months ago in Saratoga Springs. Again, this is along the Wasatch Front. But COVID has made a lot of districts very hesitant to go for a bond, even though it was falling into the regular bond cycle. And so the subcontractors that we work with, most of them are school builders. They may work in other industries, but they regularly build schools. And when we did that elementary school, I had roughly between 6 and sometimes 8 and 9 bidders in every single trade. And we received a bid price that was some of the best that we've seen. In all my years of construction, I haven't seen bid come in with that kind of response. And what that tells us is subcontractors are looking depending on the trade, in the 3 to 9 month range outlook. They're trying to find jobs in that range. And if we're seeing that kind of response, that tells us that they're needing some work. And we've heard that in anecdotal ways as well from subcontractors saying, we're very nervous about what's coming because districts have put off these bonds. Alpine District, which provides a lot of work for the Utah County subcontractors, they're possibly going to put off their bond until next year because of, from what I understand, and I don't know the details, they may have to increase their tax levy. They also are worried about COVID. And they're worried they may not be able to pass a bond, so they may push it to the following year. So there's a lot of subcontractors that have some availability. We've also found that when we did the high school, we received some fantastic pricing. So our budgets at the high school are doing very well. And we found that a lot of people that are in Utah County, especially southern Utah County, would much rather drive to Price than drive to Salt Lake. And so we're getting a lot of people that are showing a lot of interest in the projects. So we feel very confident that we're going to be able to hit those budgets because of COVID as well as because of the situation that other districts are in as well.
Sounds to me like they've driven through Lehigh.
Yes, we have.
Yeah. We all.
So I guess in a nutshell, then your expectation is since we've committed the 10 to the project, that with this new plan, we could easily stay under 11 and maybe stay under 10.5 even.
I would say that's accurate, yes. And if we have the directive that says.
He does a better job of saying maybe just a little over 10 than you do.
If we're given a directive to tell us that's exactly where we need to be, then that's, what it is a component of square footage.
Sure.
So,
And finishes.
and finish, and granted, there's also give and take, and Philip addressed that in which he said, this is still very rough. I mean, he's done some great images and some great renderings, but there's a lot of details that need to be worked out. There's also some benefit in a new building in which you may get some things that you could have never gotten in a renovation. So, and those may be to you, they may be worth spending a little extra money. But I think if you were to give a directive and say, this is what we're going to spend, we certainly could have that.
I have just wanting to make sure about the NES funding. How are we doing on that? Is that going to work out for us?
Yeah, we still feel very good about that. We're still looking to some degree as this being a renovation, there's still existing parts of the building and there'll be new parts as well. But we're still seeing it as Helper Middle School and we don't anticipate any problem with that.
So as long as there's really basically 1 2x4,
Yeah.
it's still, okay.
Well, but there's got to be consideration of 1936.
Yeah.
Right.
I think if we were taking the building and moving it off-site somewhere else and doing a whole new building, one, it that the state office sees it as a different building, they'll assign it a different number, like Peterson Elementary had a different number than Broom Point, even though they're within a fairly close distance. And I think, this is a renovation to help our middle school, and we don't see it being.
I thought I'd add real quick to kind of echo what John said is these images, this big expansive glass is, again, when we're saying we need to meet X budget, this might end up becoming a wall with more punched openings. And working with our CM and the advantage hiring a CM like you have is that we can kind of watch those side by side. We can say, if we do the big expansive glass, that's X amount of dollars. You can cut that in half or in 2/3 if you do some punched openings, and that allows you to do this. The other side of that is what we've shown you today is a little bit more program than your current than what's being torn down by a couple, 3, maybe 4,000 square feet. If we had to pare this addition right down to the same program for program, we could do that. But there is some, again, having a CM on board, maybe that would mean there's a 1-story piece of the building. Well, for a little bit less on the dollar, if you will, to just add the second floor there's some value there, right? You're already paying for a roof, you pay for the little exterior wall and some floor. And John's had some good discussions with our team about some work he did up in Morgan County where they just did that. They built the 3rd story thinking we're gonna grow into this, and they sort of shelled it out. So it was ready to grow into. And by the time the project was done, they had decided, well, let's just drywall it and paint it and have it ready for classrooms, because that little extra step. So again, having a CM on board, we can draw as much as we feel like we can in the bid, and then even have some alternates. And once the alternates come in, we can say, yeah, do that one. It's in our budget. So we might have to pare this down a little bit if you say absolutely don't go over the number we gave you. But we can also do some studies and say, hey, if we do this learning stair, or if we do this flex classroom, that maybe takes us $250,000 more up above our 10. So I think that's a good little discussion that we can have internally and keep reporting back and see where that gets us. So,
One of the things we're watching.
I think they showed you that picture so they get the extra $250,000.
Yeah, they do this and give me first. They've done their homework, they've done their homework.
As administration, working with John and Philip, we're watching that those projects that we promised, to the community in our bond are going to be completed. And so we feel very comfortable that we will be able, both at the high school and at Helper, to complete everything we said we would and then some.
We don't want it to sound like we're going to shortchange Carbon High at all. Carbon High is going to have exactly everything that had been planned. It's just the funds that are now available that we didn't think were going to be available are going to go to Helper. So we just want to make sure people understand we're not cutting something out of Carbon High's plan to do this. That's not happening.
I think part of that too is in the renovation, we felt like we were gonna have to carry a little higher contingency because you break into walls and you find something and you don't wanna have to come back for a change order. But a new construction, that contingency can be lower, so we can put more of those dollars into the design, so.
Lee, any questions?
No, I think it looks fabulous. I'm excited about it.
Can I ask the Public Works Director and Helper to see if he's got any concerns about the renovation or the change?
No, I like it. I like the idea of taking them buses around back, getting them off of Main Street. I like the fire lane in the back, putting an FTC back there. No, I love it.
Can you see any reason why the city council would have heartburn over pulling down the historic part of the building? And
I don't. I mean, my parents put 9 kids through that building. I put 2 through it. But let's move on. Let's modernize the building.
We're keeping some of it.
Lance, can you go back to the picture, keep going. What, keep going, a couple more. The one I want to see is the one with this one here. So this road that goes behind is the one you're talking about possibly being a
Bus line.
bus lane.
Yeah, so right now, the existing building sits here, and this parking lot kind of is in this area. There's a couple portables right here. And there's an old, I don't know if it's a road vehicles drove on, or if it was just students, but there's a bunch of retaining walls here that obviously carried some, was built to create enough of a flat zone here for some travel. So we would kind of bring that back. We think there's a little bit of a retaining wall that might be needed right here to make that lane work.
Now, there's a, right north of that football field, north and south of the football, or not north, east and south of the football field, there's a hill there too.
Right here.
Yeah.
We think this comes out, we walked this, and this road would be down 6 or maybe 5 or 6 feet from the running surface. Maybe actually not from the surface, but there's like a bit of a wall behind that track. So these wouldn't be grade at the same grade, but they would come out. What we need to look into is when this connects, what's that road like out here in the neighborhood? We don't want to dump buses into an area that can't handle it.
They already go through there, don't they?
No, no.
They don't go
And I
around
don't
there.
think they could go through there, because that's where the, yeah, it's very narrow.
They couldn't
Through
hang,
here?
they couldn't hang left, come up.
Oh, you're saying that.
Neighborhood there, that house, I used to have some friends that lived on that corner, and that's.
So we need to look at that, but we think that this access we think can happen, just whether or not we can make this.
A
Where it comes
a
out.
bus access or not.
Because it would have to come out and then turn to go down to Uinta.
It's actually not as narrow as you think.
No.
It doesn't go down to you, it goes all the way down.
Oh, it goes down to the.
It goes
Go down.
down.
That's called Hill
It's
Street.
that piece there by
It's
the-
just that narrow spot by where the steps are.
I don't know what that's called, I can't
The steps are about right here, right?
Right.
Isn't that Hill Street right there?
Street in front.
No, Hill Street's clear on the other end.
It's Truman Boulevard.
What one do you live?
It's Truman Boulevard.
Oh,
For area Truman.
Canyon.
That one goes that way.
So that's Canyon Street that comes
It's got a
down
sign right at the top of the
and
stairs.
then bleeds into Hill Street and goes down, right?
And it's actually wider. In fact, all of the overburden that they're hauling off for the new bus lane is actually being dumped on that hillside right now. It's widening as we speak.
They're building it up.
Incidentally, I don't know if it matters at all, but I was able to show some of the pencil sketches of the first and second floor to the staff yesterday in our meeting. Overwhelming support. I mean, certainly feedback was, we'd like to have input on what the rooms end up looking like. And there was no lockers that were shown, but they had faith that it was actually a good plan, regardless of the fact that Philip's name is mud for the timing of our bus lane, so.
It's not mine. I'm sitting over here.
Passing it on.
Okay, so what do we do here? Do we schedule this for an official vote? Or do we just have a consensus agreement that this is the way we want to go?
That's what I think.
With the way the bond documents were written, we have the authority to do it, it's just getting your blessing.
So we've got Lee's already. Kristen's already voiced.
I'm good with that. I do want to say though, that I think we're going to need to really express. I mean, we know that the carbon money is still gonna be there, but it's gonna have to get out to the community that's not any different. So I mean, I think it's wonderful, but I do think that there's gonna be some questions
Need to
about that.
educate people and.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll put our minds to that.
Well, and I think that, I was mentioning to Melissa, everybody needs something in a community like ours. But when we started this bond, this was just about help work. And we found a way to do all of these other things. So I don't think we've really strayed from our initial, I know that it's, as people look at it, they worry about that, but I think we've stuck pretty close to our original intent. We got the bus garage moved so that the high school got more parking and they got more actual instructional space. And so, do you have a specific thing that you think people are worried
No,
about?
no, I don't think there's anything specific. I think it's
This is
just
Canyon
going
Street,
to
goes up
be,
Canyon down here, turns and goes this
people
way,
saying, well,
catches Hill Street down here.
how come they get a whole
I
new
was
school?
thinking it's
And
coming.
just making sure that money is all still there for the
There'll
Which
be
it is. It's
social
just-
media comments.
It's
that
just
just
education.
get them right here now.
Yeah, exactly.
Turn that.
And I think
Look
that's,
how- that's-
but I think this is great.
Yeah, it would-
But everything we put on people's doors
Right.
that said, here's
Well,
what we're
we
gonna
just go
do,
out.
we're gonna do every single one of those. And I
Which is
think
what
that's
they
really
do
the
now.
bottom line.
They
And
come
you know, I
across the
think
school.
what might be
Yeah.
helpful, since the high school
So they would do.
progress is already,
Come this way.
you know, they're ahead
I've
of
seen
this
things.
project, that it would just be good to maybe do an article, show what's actually happening at the high school and that those things are being completed and now we're starting this. So I think it would be less,
It just can't be a big surprise.
All right.
Yeah.
Is what I'm
But
saying.
Before we get there, Jeff, how do you?
I just think it's almost hilarious, because I know when we were going to the public meetings, when we had the meeting in Helper, the people up there were saying, don't take our money to the high school. Okay, now we're worried about them saying, don't take our money from the high school to Helper.
You're gonna get that. You can't make everybody happy.
yeah.
Ever.
It just baffles me.
But, yeah.
But yeah, I think we move forward with it and we educate them.
All right. Well, why don't you forward to the board through the week, the plans and how you would like to let the board give you some input too on that, and then let's get busy
On how to communicate with
how
the
to
public.
communicate with the
Okay.
public.
Can we sit down, Rick, and we can work on a plan?
Yeah, I've got some ideas.
All right, and we've got Helper City representation, so they can get the word out too, that, hey, we can basically build new for the price of renovation. And the question is what? So,
And just to verify, you know, and support Melissa in her concern, we have been able to do everything at the high school that we intended to do, isn't that correct?
Yes.
So,
We will. It's just,
Making sure they understand that.
You
Yeah.
need to note this, that it's the first time you've come down, that you're getting ready to leave early.
Well, I gotta go
instead
before
of-
you change your mind.
Yeah. All right, well, great. Did you have anything else, Superintendent, for the work meeting?
No,
Okay. Why don't do we have items for closed?
we do, just one.
All right, well, why don't we do that, and then we'll take a little break and then come back. Is there a motion to adjourn to closed meeting for the discussion of character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Oh, no, roll call. Lee?
I,
Melissa?
I
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. We will be back at the conclusion of the closed meeting.
Are you gonna have to send her a new link?
So Lee, we'll send you a new link for the closed
Okay.
meeting.
all right.
And if you open it in a new window, then you won't lose this meeting.
Yeah, so
Oh, okay.
thank you to all of you that came today.
Audio recordable.
Lee, are you with us?
I am.
Okay, good. You ready, Darren? Okay, well, welcome everyone to our August 12th, 2020 regular session of our school board meeting. All board members are president, also present. Superintendent's with us and business office administrators with us, along with supervisors and principals. We appreciate them being here. If you all rise and join with us, we'll repeat the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I do not have any public comment requests up here, Darren. Are there any that we're missing? Okay, let's move on. Recognition. Okay, let's move on then to board member reports. Kristen, let's do it.
Well, actually, I have been wondering, Rob did a great job of handling all the registration because there was no way that anybody could even get to the front door of the building. But I think they were able to manage that pretty much online, with the exception of a couple of students.
Which we do blame Wentworth Associates.
Oh, yeah. Phil carries all the blame.
But did they tell you that they'll be able to how are you going to get kids in there? Are they going to be finished next week?
Oh, no, Dare is not going to be finished next week.
Mhm.
We have already spoken with Bruce. We've got a plan for transportation for pickup and drop off. We'll use the far end of the football field and open up the truck gate. And we will drop off at that end and we'll bring kids into the back of the gym.
Okay.
Parents will still be able to access the back of the building and have to call us to open the door. But we will also be using that back to transfer into the art building through the garage door and down some steps on the inside.
Holy cow.
It's going to be an adventure.
But we're going to do it. Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Okay, Melissa.
I don't really have a whole lot that I've been able to do or see, but I do want to mention that I know that the kids and the teachers, everybody's excited to go back to school. There's a couple of little comments I'd like to add. One of these is just something that went around Facebook. I think several of you already seen it, but that I shared early on because I think it's something that the parents need to consider. And it says, schools will announce fall plans soon. I imagine everyone will be unhappy. Remember, you help determine your child's attitude. Be angry or sad in private. Discuss your frustrations away from the kids. Set them up for success by teaching them how to make the best of it. Be a sounding board for their worries and disappointments and stay positive and model perseverance. And I think that, I think a lot of parents are seeing that. They're modeling that. They're looking at it's how I'm acting and how I'm feeling that is reflecting upon the kids. And then there was another really good article, and the one comment in it that really hit me was that we need to stop marinating in fear. You need to make a decision as a parent or as a teacher to go back to school, live with that decision when you make it, whether it's going to be as far as students go online, whatever, but we need to stop marinating in fear, because I think that's what we're all doing right now, is we're all kind of marinating in fear, so. But I'm looking forward to getting back in and going to visit the schools and see what they're doing.
All right, great. There were some questions about face coverings and the quality of face coverings. So I did print out the John Hopkins guide to face coverings, so everybody here can have one so that they understand. And I know we get into some slippery slopes when we start. I think superintendent something about we don't want to be the thread count police as we go, but they can't make adjustments and do things better if they don't know. And so education is a good key out there about what provides protection and what doesn't there. So there's that good information on it. Jeff.
Cool. I've been actually going to as many schools as I could get into just to see how things are developing, getting ready for school. And the buildings look pretty good. I don't know if that's because we didn't have, 1,000 feet for the last 3 months of the last school year, but.
It makes no sense because the schools this time of the year normally don't look like there's any possible way that they
can be ready. That's right. But they look pretty good. And I think the staff is pretty excited for the most part. But I say that because I also have been talking to people and I've come to the conclusion that we as people don't listen very well. Because I talked to one person.
Were you saying something?
I talked to one person and all they can see is they've got to get kids back in school because they've got to go to work and their spouse has to go to work and those kids need education. They need to have social interactions and things like that. And so I bring up to them, have you thought about, and then I present something from someone who says, hey, I have these concerns about it. And so that opens a discussion. And then I get the people who say, no, we need to delay opening a school for another 2 weeks, which my question is, I don't know what that's going to get us, but it opens a dialogue. And then you bring up to them, those people who don't want to have schools open. What about those families who have children in the school that really feel like their child will be best served in school? What about their opinions? And when you get one side talking about the other side and their points of view, pretty soon they all say, we probably have to meet somewhere in the middle and we're not going to make anybody happy. And that is the definition of compromise, I think, is when you don't have anybody who's really happy about the situation. But you got to do the best you can. I like what Melissa said. But stop marinating.
Let's not marinate anymore.
Start cooking.
Lee.
Yes, I just wanted to say thanks to the superintendent, Darren, and Micah, Stacy, and all those others that have put all this work together to get us back. I know it's been a long process, but I think they've done great and just appreciate everybody that's done that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we all echo that. Thank you. All right, superintendent.
Okay. Just wanted to report on a couple of things. The first thing I'll just get out of the way really quick is Opening Institute will be virtual this year. So it'll be Monday morning at 8 o'clock. We'll send a YouTube live link out to everybody to be able to join in and watch. And so it'll be good. We're looking forward to it. It's gonna still be good, but we just felt it would be best to do it virtually. So heads up on that one. Then we wanted to just quickly go over our Carbon Online School. For a couple of years, we wanted to to put this together, and it took a pandemic to finally get us there. So we just love options in Carbon School District, and we're glad that we have an option for online school. But our online school is completely online. We have some requirements that the students must meet, and we'll be very upfront with those. And that's at least 20 hours a week, which is 4 hours per day engaged in the content. I know that doesn't sound like very much, but when you factor in all of the transition times and breaks and lunch and everything to a normal student, you're not far from that. And that's kind of industry-wide, kind of the acceptable amount. So if they don't participate for 10 days, they're dropped. We're going to be using Edgenuity for 6th grade through 12th grade, Path Blazers for kindergarten through 5th. Carbon School District teachers won't be teaching, but they will be facilitating. So basically supporting, checking on student progress, entering grades. Younger students, we just want to communicate when we talk to parents. We're all communicating. The younger your student is, probably the more involved you're going to have to be, parent. Just because of the nature of online school. We don't want them to think they can just sit their kid on a computer and never check on them or make sure they're focused. We want them to understand that grades will be assigned based on the work they do in the system, and the system will be calculating those grades, and we will be putting those grades into Aspire. They will be eligible for pickup meals if they're in Carbon Online. So we have a system in place for that. Heidi Anderson's been able to help us figure out how to do that. So we're excited. So they just need to contact their school anytime now if they're interested in that. The other thing I wanted to report on is the data from the parent survey that we did. Our data represents 1,814 students. 1,627 of them plan to physically attend school. 187 not. Of those, 87 are interested in Carbon Online School. 90 are interested in making other plans that don't involve Carbon Online School. So just as a graph, it kind of gives you the perspective of what we're looking at here in that data. One thing to note is that as principals have had conversations with many of these, because I send these people's information to the schools, so then they follow up and they call them and try to help them out. Many of these are saying, you know what, I think we've changed our minds. We're going to be going to school physically. So these are just from the survey, so they're not hard numbers, and people's minds are changing as we speak. So.
Ready?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, all right. Darren, do you have anything for us?
No.
Okay, let's move on then. And we have our guidance professionals here. So let's go ahead and move forward.
Start with Carbon High.
Their wonderful plans. Should we make Melissa come up and report whether she met her goal or not?
No, but I do want you to let me have a little bit of time.
Oh, no, oh, no.
This, I had nothing to do with this one, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is actually a plan that I have worked on for multiple years. It's probably going to be the last plan or the last year that I collect the data on it for a data project. But we identified the need for a data project for this particular these items based upon our transition indicators and our annual performance report. So we get this report every year, and it basically says how many students are graduating, how many are dropouts, how many are attending higher education, how many are competitively employed, or how many are a combination of that and other types of employment. And we had noticed that our SPED students were not scoring very high in going to college and having competitive employment. And so we really focused our outcomes the last several years on those 3 items. And you can see that our percentages have really gone up on indicators A, B, and C. And then with your not engaged, that's basically a student who is not going to college, they're not working, they're home is usually what that is. And you want that to decline, and that's what our numbers have shown. And so we're pretty excited about that. I added a couple of additional columns because this is probably what I want to focus on in the upcoming years, and that's our graduation rate and dropout rate for SPED students. We have always had a really good graduation rate and very few dropouts. I do think the last year's data is a little bit, it's kind of a different year. So I do think that it will actually go back up, but I am concerned about the dropouts, and so my plan for next year will be to focus on decreasing the dropouts. You have any questions?
Any questions? So these last 2 columns are the indicators that you're looking at for the coming period,
Yes.
coming time. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Wonderful.
So I guess I do have, because I'm kind of a numbers, you got graduation rate, and if we're not looking at 2019, okay, we'll go back to 2017, you have graduation rate of 88 and a dropout rate of 8. So that comes to 96.
I know, they do not match up.
Yeah, I'm going, I don't
So
see these correlation.
I'm not sure exactly how these numbers are pulled for that report.
Okay.
These aren't my numbers, they actually come from the state or from that annual
Okay.
Annual progress report. But that's the data that they give us. We do know that when we're entering graduation codes, there are multiple codes. So some are earning a diploma, others are other graduates because they may earn a different type of certificate of completion, and some are the dropouts. So I think why it's not adding up necessarily is because I think it's taking into account your certificates of completion. You've got your graduation rate with the students with the diplomas, then you've got your certificates of completion, and then you have your official dropouts that are actually dropping out, going to adult ed. But that's why I need to focus on that, and I agree, because I've wondered that myself. Figuring out where the data comes from is going to be an important part of my next year's project.
And that, your answer led me to another question then is there another pathway besides graduation and dropout?
Yes.
I mean, or certificate of completion? I mean, can they continue on in the school system?
They can. So they actually take this data a year after they graduate with their diploma or exit at whatever age, and it can be up to 22.
That's where I was going with that,
So
yeah.
you may have students who have exited just because they wanted to go to adult ed. You may have students who have stayed an additional year. There are multiple situations and circumstances.
Or you could have a year where a lot of people just finished all at once, that were in the 20, 21, and 22-year-olds.
So that will be more of my focus next year. Where do we
Gotcha.
get these numbers and why doesn't it match up? with
All right,
Any other
thank you.
questions?
Melissa, here's your chance.
Well, I do want to acknowledge that all 4 of the high school counselors are here, including Brandy Stamatakis, who is the new counselor. And that for all of these reports, that this is a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. I have to separate myself here. They gather all kinds of data throughout the year. And so it's hard to figure out how to put it all together. But one thing I do want to say is, as far as the counselors in this district go, you have the best team in the state, honestly. And some of the state office of education people will tell you the same thing. But I think a lot of that comes from the support they receive from their school administrators, from the administrators here and the board. So they work hard. They're kind of a forgotten middle. They're not, admin, and they're not teachers, and so often they get forgotten. But I would like to personally commend them on their work, because it's wonderful. And I have inside information, I know, but I think that they get forgotten a lot, so.
And that's very true. This is not just my plan. This takes a lot of people. This takes all of your sped teachers, it takes parents, it takes the students. There's a lot of buy-in that happens with this. The admin is involved in it. It's very much a school-wide, and our other counselors are helping me with all of these projects too. But this happened to be the area that I was working in, that we put that on.
The only thing that I can add is that as you start diving into the graduation and dropout rate and looking what makes up these numbers, very thoughtfully decide which numbers really matter and which numbers are just noise in the whole process. So thoughtfully select that, so you're not just doing busy work, you're really doing something that, because there's enough numbers and stuff out there that you can be caught. You want a whole complete story, so you just get caught in noise.
A lot of information, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can find out there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Helper Middle School.
While she's passing that out to you, I'll just take a second and say thank you for the working session. That was quite delightful. So thank you for the time you put into it, the thoughtful process that you did.
Okay, so this is a continuation of basically the data project that we've been working on since 15, 16, I would estimate. It's been refined, modified, changed, focused, and this year we were really thinking we were on a good track, and then fourth quarter hit us. So we don't have data for fourth quarter. We look really good, because our goal was just to decrease behaviors by 5% for all grade levels by the end of this week. But we didn't have any in fourth quarter, so.
You did.
I know. I thought, wow, what did we do? So anyway, we did end up having 86 reflection sheets for the defined disrespectful argumentative behaviors. And I don't know if you guys remember from last year, we had the green sheets and the red sheets kind of combined, and there was like 1,100 sheets, and it was things from tardies and pencils to, telling your teacher to, swearing at your teacher was so bad. Anyway, so we really needed to focus on one area. And so that's where the defiant disrespectful argumentative behaviors came in. Again, this is all SLT meeting stuff, behavior team meeting stuff, so we're actually meeting as a staff and we're saying, okay, what do you need? What are the things you want us to focus on? Because yes, tardies matter, and yes, not having a pencil, not being prepared matter, but what are the things that are preventing you from teaching? And so we narrowed it down to these kind of 3 target areas: defiant, disrespectful, and argumentative behaviors. We created red sheets, which were different. They affected citizenship differently. They prompted phone calls to parents, so more interaction between the school and parents. There was some teacher, again, buy-in, like Melissa knows, like the teachers had to do something from the classroom, like we needed to establish rules and guidelines, and it looks like, sounds like chart, because it looks different to walk into the art room and be, compliant, respectful, non-argumentative, versus like an English classroom versus the PE classroom. So those things needed to be created. We did put this as part of our school-wide improvement plan where I present to you guys. Amy Bell came in and she actually provided training to us on how to effectively write a tier 3 behavior plan, because that's an area that we were lacking on. And then we did, referrals to outside agencies. So kind of based on all of that and continuing to educate the students on their responsibility, we did have a 27% decrease overall from first quarter to third quarter. So there are 86 red sheets in first quarter, 51 in second quarter, and then 63 in third quarter. And typically you see that bump third quarter. We always saw referrals when we were tracking referrals. They're back in 15, 16. Third quarter was always higher than even first and second quarter. This year that didn't happen. And we really didn't stop school until the end of third quarter. So I feel like that's pretty accurate data. But again, I'm really proud of none in fourth quarter.
So you were really reliant on fourth quarter here to make your goal or not, because with 4 quarters, 75%, you have 27%, so you're 2% on the good side. All depend on the fourth quarter whether you would have made your goal or not.
Well, it was a 5% decrease and we made it 27. So our goal,
So they had 20%.
7% decrease.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we wanted a 5% decrease.
Gotcha.
And we got a 27. So we might have not shot lofty enough. But
So do you think that there was so much different from this year's program to 2019's program that you couldn't really compare the 2 years together? Or do you have a comparison of how things went for this year that were for the previous year?
versus last year. That's hard because again, we had the green sheet and the red sheet
Right.
together.
That's what I said. So you think there's so much change that it was a.
Not necessarily that there's some change. We actually do have the aggregate
We
data.
did
that
go
puts it all
back.
together.
Yeah, we did go back and do it. And
There was a decrease.
there was a decrease.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact number.
One of the significant changes that we made was altering how our 6th graders were enrolled in school with regards to non-honors classes. What that let us do is distribute the behavior issues that we knew were coming after interviewing with their 5th grade teachers, get them away from their friends to the point that our 6th graders had virtually no red sheets. It was,
There like 7.
yeah, it was incredible.
It wasn't very many at all,
We were excited to see that kind of progression.
which then prompted us to not have.
6th, 7th, and 8th
Make that
graders.
changes in 7th and 8th.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So this is actually a trial year. Our current 8th graders are a little bit more challenging, and so their data is aggregated as well. And so if I remember, I'll write it down. Next year, I'll specifically show 8th grade because that's the same cohort going through and what they did the 3 years and the changes that they made. So, but some of that will also, will be due to maturity. So hopefully, so.
In one way or the other, huh?
Yeah.
All right, any questions? No,
Good
we
job.
asked them already. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Okay, Mont Harmon.
I think Randy's on.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
check and
too.
just make sure she's not having any problem getting on. Yep, looks like she's here, so you with us, Randy Lynn?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, great.
Okay, so this, like many of the others, we've been working on for several years. We focused on our low SES, social economic status students, and who were also either on an IEP or a 504. And we did that because they're at a higher risk of kind of continuing to fail courses, and we wanted to see if we could help intervene to increase their achievement in that area. So that was kind of the basis of our project. Our goal was to increase 20% in passing grades in that group, in that category. We did this by assigning or having our teachers pick out 2 or 3 of the students, and they would check in with them once a week to see how their grades were doing, see how everything was going for them academically, but also socially and emotionally. As they were going through the year, the teachers would reach back out to us if there was concerns that they had. If it was an academic concern, that student would meet with our student advocates who would help them with their academic courses to help them get caught up. If it was a social emotional need, they would meet with us and we would do what we could to kind of help them out with that. Just because that social emotional health has been linked to academics just through some different studies that have been done. And so if you look at the graph, the blue is our first quarter. So the dark blue is the amount of failing grades we had at midterm. The light blue is the amount of failing grades we had at the end of that quarter.
So,
we were,
so is that, excuse me. is
Yeah,
that-
no, go
So
for it.
is the number 57, is that 57 of the 87? Had
yes,
failing grades at midterm? Okay.
yes, that we're filling one of their 3 core classes at midterm.
Okay,
And we were able to, or they were able to reduce that number to 31 by the end of that term. And then green was second quarter and red is our third quarter. So we were wanting to decrease it by 20, and by the end of our last quarter, we were able to reduce it by 24% from the first quarter. So we did end up seeing and reaching that goal.
shows that there's some value in identifying them here, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Identify your target.
Yeah.
And just kind of how helpful those student advocates can be in helping those kids keep their grades up.
Wonderful. Any question? Randy Lynn, anything else to add?
Nope. Yeah, identifying the students was big. But also we base this off of our school improvement plan from a few years ago. And so I think targeting that group specifically for our school met our school needs, and then having the teachers helping us identify out of those groups who needed some extra help was really helpful. So working with our admin to, align with our school improvement plan initially, and then having our teachers keep track of all of these students was awesome, because we have a hard time doing it all on our own. And they, like Carbon and Hope already talked about, we have some good buy-in with our parents and with our teachers, with our SPED teachers and admin. And so it was easier to help those kids after they were targeted, because everybody kind of bought into this. And right off the bat, even our brand new teachers were willing to step in and help us throughout the year.
So the numbers, the 57, 32, and 38 were at the beginning of the quarter.
They're midterm.
Midterm.
Okay, midterm of the quarter. And those were at least one failing grade.
Yes, in one of their core classes.
Right. So do you also track how many have multiple failing grades?
Yes, we do have that too, it's just not.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so did we have a lot of students who, I don't know, maybe it's answering itself because you went from, in the red, you went from 38 to 18. I'm imagining that some of those 18 were part of the 38 that had multiple failing grades, but now they still have one, but maybe not 2 or 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can see that. Yeah.
Okay.
And if
Okay.
fourth quarter was up there, fourth quarter would have been awesome.
I agree. Across the board, we did great in the fourth quarter if we'd only been there.
We keep hearing that. How well we did.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you.
I did felt a shout out to the new mental health counselors too.
Yeah.
They have been wonderful, and I'm sure they probably were involved. I'm sure Tammy was kind of involved in this project and in Nikki's at the middle school, and then some of them are the lone counselor person at their elementary school, so. The whole team together is a great team.
The only question I had about this is, if you looked at this longitudinally, are you finding the same students failing every year, or do they, once they do this and once they're monitored the next year, are they totally different students, or are they repeat offenders, so to speak?
We have a good combination. Sorry, are you talking to me? I hope so. Sorry.
Only if she made eye contact with you.
I don't know. I can't tell. Okay. Yeah, we had both. So we had some who were new to the school too. A lot of the 6th graders, a lot of just getting those numbers down for the 6th grade is just trying to help the 6th graders navigate that system a little bit. But then also we do have some kids who just need that extra help. They need somebody to help them actually physically turn in their assignments or to get on top of things, and then they can succeed. So we kind of have a mixture of both. But you do notice that the kids that they don't do that very often, as soon as we get them a little bit of help, then they can maintain. But we do see kids who, I don't know, repeat offenders, I guess, who do struggle consistently and they do need that extra help. So we kind of have a mixture of both throughout the year.
Thank you. I have a general question. There's 3 areas of focus that for these projects. It says access, attainment, and achievement. So Carbons was on access, the other 2 are on achievement. What does attainment mean? What would be an example of focusing on attainment?
She's looking around for someone to take that answer.
Why nobody's selecting that.
It's one of those immeasurable.
They just changed that last year and the year before and changed it to the access, attainment, and achievement.
I'm thinking too, I was gonna be quiet today.
I could find it.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
I know, it was goodness, but I think we're talking about attainment of like grades, and I think that they all overlap because we're still helping them attain success in school. And I think that's what they really mean. I don't think that we're not focusing on attainment.
And I think if you look at it, they have, under access, they have a list of possible things that you could do for that section, and attainment, possible things, and then achievement, so.
The little bit of confusion may lend itself that our guidance counselors are very focused in on what they are doing and not the rest of the stuff. So there's a positive there.
Thank you.
Yes.
Or it could be they did these for multiple years and attainment was just a new category and they didn't want to mess up what they'd done.
All right.
I am curious about one thing there. There's always so many students that aren't turning in their homework. They're not. Is that a learned behavior? Is that something they should be learning in elementary school, or what I don't understand that. I don't understand. I know, I'm old fashioned.
I definitely think it's complicated. I think, especially in middle school, there's a lot of like different hormones and brain development that's kind of going on. I think that plays a role. I think home environment too, and also school environment. So I think it's all kind of jumbled in there together. But yeah, I think partly it is a learning. At least that's where you can.
And I think a lot of the projects, you have to focus on one small group, because you could get the whole student body, but then you're looking at students from this level to this level, and you're not able to really pinpoint a goal or something to work toward. But I think.
So I guess my question really, when I think about it, is it study habits, or is it the intellectual ability of understanding that information? Or is it just, not doing the work, or not having the ability to do the work?
And I think that varies student to student. I think some of it, really the students they have a hard time remembering to turn it in, or they are reluctant to turn it in for some reason. And I think there are others who really need that extra help. And I think that's partly why we focused on this, because this is a category of students who are at risk for maybe needing a little bit of extra help and a little bit more time with the material. And I think that's a good part of like the student advocate aspect of this data, because it does help them kind of fill in those gaps if they need it.
Well, if you figure that out, I need to go to time clock and go back with my 7 children and figure that out, because I had all the way from high honors to, you have 25 missing assignments, and we peel out the backpack, and here they all are sitting in the backpack.
And a lot of the times it's just, oh, I forgot.
And Brad and Tammy could not guess which child that was.
And yet I've seen a child like
But one
that.
of his best friends is a teacher at the junior high.
I've seen a child like that from my household that just wouldn't turn in the assignments, and then he'd score 99
Yeah,
on the
and
year-end
it's the
assessments.
same, it's the same child. Yeah.
What's up?
So it's not really ability, it's just a sort of a procedural habit.
Like the same
But there's
child.
some who don't have the natural gift ability, but they are born with an innate desire to be detail oriented, and so they will work their guts out and succeed.
That same child in middle school age got an F in the class, an H in citizenship, and a 97th percentile on the. So if you figure it out, let me know, will you? Because we'll do good.
What do you do with it? Maybe if you had a mentor, or she had a mentor.
And that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Trying to do here.
Yeah, is trying to figure out how we can help them, whether it's helping them just remember to turn that homework in, or maybe getting them that extra help. And that's what this is all about, is finding their needs.
Thank you. Thank you. We're good. Until you sit down, then we'll have.
I
another
know.
question. All right, foreign exchange students. So we have 3.
Have one.
We have 1.
We need to qualify this a little bit. Yeah.
Well, the visa, J1 visa, isn't that the one that they can't, that the president said doesn't count anymore?
I'm not sure about that, but we have one that's here and 2 that will be here until January.
Oh,
But we
okay.
thought we'd have you go ahead and look at their needs anyway, and if they can get approval now, then when they get here, we can report to you, let you know that they're here, but, and then they may, who knows what'll happen by
So,
January.
so who's here now?
I know for sure Maria is coming in January, but I don't know which of the other 2 are here already.
Mighty is not coming until at least January.
Okay, so then.
So
Elaine-
now, it's Maria, Eduardo, Soriano, Simoes,
Santos.
Santos is all one person.
Great name.
She's Brazilian.
Yeah,
She lives by me, 260. You would think.
Well, she will. She'll be here in
She will,
January.
in
Yeah,
January.
right. And I love the name Mighty.
Yeah,
I'll
I
tell
saw
you
that
what.
too. I thought, man, how come I can't have that name?
Well,
Yeah, well, it's quiet, it's quiet. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right, well then, any other questions? Is there a motion to approve these foreign exchange students?
Make motion, we approve the foreign exchange students.
Been moved. Is there a second? Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Lee, okay? Can hear?
Yep. Yes, I can.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Well, we hope they come. But I thought J1 was the visa that they shut down.
there's the J1 and the F1.
F1, both
You know,
of them.
Brad?
They didn't shut them down. They just said at one point that if everybody was going fully online, that they would be able to come.
Oh,
J1 is the
Ah,
one
yeah.
that the state
well,
Finances.
brings.
it was all the, yeah, and that was a big problem because of all the dual immersion teachers up north. There
Oh,
was
yeah.
a bunch of concern. Okay. Don't find a problem where there isn't one, right? Okay, TSSA framework.
Okay, this is patterned after last year's framework. We invested a lot in TSSA last year in the things that we did, and we'll get to that in just a minute. I just wanted to remind the board what TSSA is. It's the Teacher and Student Success Act, also known as SB 147. And local boards have the responsibility under that bill, well now law, to approve a framework that serves as the guideline for how the money is to be spent. Yes.
You just said SB 147.
149. Did I say
Okay,
147?
I'm reading my screen going,
No.
I don't have
I'm sure it is.
147.
149. 147 must be a particularly nasty one if it rolls off the tongue like that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So you need to approve a framework. We may use 25% to 40% for an increase to the base salary. I want to point out that last year we did 25% to address the base salary. That means that we really need to commit that same 25% so that we can maintain that this year.
Programs.
That's not an increase, that's just to keep us, where we were. And then schools have to, under the legislation, they have to develop their own plan that's consistent with the framework. So you provide a framework, the schools then have to develop their own individual plan. School boards also approve the individual school plans, which you'll see next month. And then the funds have to be used to implement the school's plan. So they can't get a plan approved and then use the money for something that isn't related to the plan. So here's the whole framework. We will receive $606,295. We need to commit 25% to salaries, and that's the amount there. So we have two main focuses that we did last year that we're asking the board to consider for this year. One is the mental health. Between the mental health grant that we applied for and that we were awarded, this will be the second year of the mental health grant, and the TSSA, we're able to really help with the counselor and mental health situation in our schools. I think I'll come down here really quick. Before TSSA, we had half a counselor at each of these and no licensed social workers. So TSSA has made it possible now for us to have a counselor at each elementary school. Hallelujah. Can we get an amen? I mean,
Amen.
this is a huge need at our elementary schools. Our counselors do an amazing job, and the schools function better with a full-time counselor. On top of that, we get the licensed social workers who are helping as well. And we wondered how that would go. It was only a couple months before they had completely maxed out their capacity to handle students. The need is so great that they, it's really just, they're seeing one student right after the other. There's no lack for need there. They're probably seeing too many students actually, and but we're so grateful for them. They're working super hard. They're learning a lot. They're learning from other districts. They have their own PLC. Micah facilitates that, and she does a great job helping them to consider and really just develop from scratch a program that we've never had before. So, so the mental health side has been huge. On the other side of the framework, we have the school improvement plans. This is a picture of the Mont Harmon team doing a protocol where they were analyzing data, determining their focus area, and setting SMART goals. And this day was awesome. We had 6 schools one day and then 3 schools another day. And they spent the whole day going through that process with many different protocols that led them to a new school improvement plan with new SMART goals. So the rest of the balance of TSSA, we've kind of dedicated to the schools working their plan. If they say they have a SMART goal for academics, now they have some money that they can do PD, or they can purchase some resources that they need. Now they have some money for a behavior goal that they have. Same thing, now they have some money that they can use to help them to reach that goal. And so that's the 2 goals that they're setting this year are academics and behavior. And we're hoping that the board will approve this framework so that we'll continue the great work that we're doing in mental health, and also provide the schools the means to be able to address their school level SMART goals.
Yeah, so if you remember last year as this came about and we dived in, we chose to simplify from the board, from the district perspective, and say, well, let's tie this to the individual school improvement plan. So it not only involves the principal and staff, it involves the school community council. So it ties right in with the school community council involvement in what's happening in the school as they present their goals, just to give them. So now they have source of funding from the TSSA and from the land trust program. So
How guaranteed is TSSA money?
Tell the legislature.
Not very.
From year to year, is
Yeah.
that what you're telling me?
well, everything in the
But if
budget
we
is year
put
to
that on
year.
the base salary, how does that hurt?
Yeah, well, that's the concern, when we decided to do that 25%, it basically committed us to it.
Well,
Unless
but
we
the
find another
TSSA is
revenue.
officially above the line though, right? No, it's below the
below.
line? Oh, why did we do that?
I know, that's.
Well, we kind of warned against it, but the way that if TSSA were to go away, we would need to find, a way.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
then that year's negotiations, so if we lost $300,000, off of that TSSA.
We have to,
that's
we
what our
find it
salaries,
somewhere.
and when we discuss negotiations, we'll be looking for. and
A way to replace it.
It's not such a high amount that it would.
Well, our expectations now are, Darren, that we would have a reduction in our healthcare premiums.
Yeah, every year. Yeah,
Cover
just
that.
do that every
We
year.
would hope for
So
that,
we get
yeah.
free?
But they, those same discussions came up about the educator salary adjustment years ago, the 4,200 that teachers receive, and they said, do not put that in the base. And that's been 12 years going. And I think once enough districts move forward with it as part of their salaries, it is very hard for the legislature to just in one cut have it disappear. And so we're not alone in that. Pretty much every district dedicated a good portion of that to teachers. So.
Teachers and
Counselors,
counselors.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's tied, pretty tight to the mental health counselors.
Yes.
Right. So a question then, if I do my math right, it looks like up on your chart here, we've got about 42% accounted for of the 606,000.
Well, we should have it all.
Okay.
Well, we've got 350,000, well, we've got 151,000.
Actually, I think that one is wrong.
350,000.
Well,
No,
so,
that's pretty close.
so and that's
Yeah,
where my
it's pretty
question is.
close.
If we're at 606, that's the total amount dollars, right?
That's right.
25% of that means 151.
Mhm.
Okay, and
That's only
that,
74.
151.
So you add 151 plus 104.
500 and 104. So
Well,
it's
the
all-
salary, but you have to still add the TSSA money
So let me,
on the mental health.
151, 350.
151,
So 151 went to the
574
employees.
plus 270.
okay, so the 270 is an additional add.
Yes.
Okay, all right. That's where I'm coming with this one. I'm not seeing all the numbers.
That's what
It should-
we've got a grant for 80,000.
Right, yeah,
and
yeah.
We're using 270 of the TSSA.
But the 151 above, goes to it has nothing to do with this, it goes to the employee
base.
salary base.
Okay,
That's the amount that's committed to.
okay,
the
so it's
employee
those three
salary.
numbers, the 104, the 270, and the 151.
I think it's off by about $63,000, and we'll take that and review if you would like.
No mathematician.
Get sharpen that calculator.
Just,
Okay,
I
any
think,
more questions on the TSSA or any more comments?
I do believe somewhere that
There still
TSSA
is.
is not allowed to be spent for administration, right?
I said for my school.
Oh, I
Ah.
I was
Chelsea, any comment from the association or concerns with this?
No, I have personally loved it and, we like the plan and the way that it works. And I haven't heard any complaints from any member of the association about it.
Okay.
I think they see it as support in every way. And so we're happy with them.
My only concern is if it were ever not funded, we need to, that would be a pretty big consideration.
Especially the mental health aspect.
Yeah.
That would hurt, so it would be terrible.
It
So
is
we really
all-
need to lobby that we keep that funding.
Yeah. Again, I think under the current environment right now, it would be hard for the legislature to ignore the mental health component of everything that's going on. Although they can ignore anything they want, is that right? Yeah, Brad, I saw Brad's eyes look around, it's like, nah, they'll do whatever they want. Yeah. Okay, Dan, is there a motion?
I would motion, but I would say you do need to look at the numbers because it is off. There's
Yeah.
60 something missing.
Yeah, I can see
You
that.
can't have that.
I can see that. And,
Use it well.
Okay.
I will just
Yeah.
say Darren only helped me.
Oh, you
Yeah,
won't.
if he would have just done it,
Uh-huh.
it would be right.
So I would make.
So we do have the 151, that's sure. And we do have the mental health component. We
Yeah, I
know
think
that's
it
the
comes down
amount,
to
so
the-
the difference is in what's going to go to the schools.
So we might be able to allot, $32 per student or something, to make up that difference.
Well, 15,
You better check.
Well, I think we're to the positive, right?
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
Yeah, that's to the positive.
So this would potentially be adjusted right here.
So I would move that we approve the TSSA plan with the corrections as
You know
proposed.
what, it's that mental health grant amount.
Oh, that's right, you've
So that's
got
what's figured in there.
see, the mental health
Instead of
grant
just
is
the
not part
TSSA,
of the
It's the
TSSA.
79,248, that's the
That's
difference.
what I did. I added that in, okay.
So we have,
So
we have an
need to move
additional
that.
79,000.
That's gotta be moved over here.
My calculations are correct to be about $40 per student.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's gonna be more than $2.
Okay, all right.
That's
We'll make
awesome.
that correction.
But don't
That's
take
awesome.
that out of the recording because I'm wrong.
It's already out live.
That was Keith Palmer.
Math
Math guy.
Okay.
Mike is back there too.
She's being quiet though.
Okay.
She's being
She's on my wife.
We got a motion, did I get a second?
Yeah, I motioned as long as it,
Okay,
the
I'll
numbers
second
are
it then.
correct.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? With none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think that's all. Motion carries. All right. Policy 509, admissions and attendance compulsory education. I love that term. Not.
Compulsory education.
Yeah. So, Melissa, you know how to get to that?
Yep, I'm gonna pull it up here. Sorry, I didn't have it ready, but. Okay.
So it
So
was delete everything and then,
we needed to start over because of
Start over,
legislation. And if you go all the way down,
then there's more.
you'll see, this is Robert's policy.
And we deleted it. Okay.
And it was based on an older version of a model policy. So as I was working on it, I found the newest one that was done in June by the USBA's team. And that's what you're seeing here is basically the model policy. And with some additions at the bottom that we are now required to have from the USBE. This was just voted on by the State Board of Education that we needed to address, our remote learning, our virtual learning, and our Carbon Online School. So these bottom three are not part of the model policy. The rest of it is really just what we have to have in policy based on code, as you can see, all the references to code. And this is first reading.
All right. Anything as you look through it that concerns you?
I would just say, as I work through it, there's nothing on here that contradicts what we have been doing, or that it really brings us up to accurate references to code, and so there's not anything that would cause us to, change our practices dramatically. There is this new component of having to have now I'm going to forget what they called it, a truancy officer. And so we've always had to have somebody in the school who was responsible for that. So it's not a huge change, but in language, it's a change to the policy and the legislation. Truancy specialist, not
Yeah,
officer.
specialist, there it is. But it says that we don't have to.
But we do. We have someone at every school who is responsible for following up with following that student through the legal process should they be referred to court.
So I have a personal hang up on when a student is homeschooled and it's obvious it's ineffective. We have no say over that. So let's modify that. If a student is homeschooled up until the last year or half a year, semester, whatever, and then they want to come to our school so they can get a diploma, do they take an assessment test?
Not that I'm aware of. If they enroll, they enroll.
Yeah, that's the program they were in. They couldn't graduate without their credits, so whichever program they were enrolled in had to have some way to earn their credits along the way. If they only came for the last quarter of school, they could earn a quarter credit in all the courses they were enrolled in with us, but they wouldn't be able to graduate unless they had earned enough credits to graduate, and that would depend on whatever program they were in.
So they would have to be enrolled in a program that would keep track of credits and things like that, not just homeschooled.
An online type situation that is approved. Now, who approves whether or not we can
There's
accept those
different
credits?
kinds. So when you sign the homeschool affidavit, all you're doing is accepting full responsibility for the education of your children, but then it's up to you.
Right.
You can choose curriculum that's really just curriculum that you teach them, and then there's a process they can go through to be tested and to make sure that they're meeting some sort of standard, or there are actual like online schools that the parent really isn't the teacher, but they have teachers, and they can be like an accredited program. So it just depends on which program they choose as parents, but we have no say in any of that. But we wouldn't award a diploma until we had a transcript from whichever program they were in.
And so do we look at whether or not the program is accredited or accredited by whom?
I think that's the murky water, because in Utah, you have the right to educate your own child. And so if you are the one who's declaring the credits, does that count? I mean, I don't know. I don't know that we've really run into that.
Well, the school district has the authority to determine how many credits and what constitutes a credit from our curriculum and what we're doing. I assume that extends.
Well, it's just like if you get a student from out of state who has a similar science class to a science class that we would teach, we could grant that credit if we looked into a little town that they were pretty similar. We could do something like that. But if you had someone come to you with the course list, just how we need it for the state of Utah for graduation requirements with grades that we're passing, I don't know how we can really argue against that. If they were awarded the credit for secondary math 1, I really don't know how we can go back and say, well, it really wasn't rigorous enough, or it wasn't really, I'm not sure how we could do that.
Yeah, and I'm only interested in saying, if they want our name on their diploma, they need to be assessed.
I don't know how to.
I don't know how to do that either. Like I said, that's a personal beef of mine.
Sure. We don't even assess we don't have a standard assessment for our own. We don't have a norm test that we give every student in order for them to graduate. They can take ACT, they can take AP assessments, they can, we give them the assessments in our courses, but we don't have a all-encompassing test for graduation for our own students.
Okay. Other questions or concerns? Lee?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, is there a motion to accept policy 509, admissions and attendance compulsory education, as a first reading?
I did have one more question. We had a parent here, I think, was it last meeting, that talked about the policy of compulsory attendance And I think it's under 509.11. When it talks about 5 absences, those are just unexcused. It says without valid excuses.
Yes.
And a parent can give you whatever excuse they deem as necessary. They were out of town, they went to a doctor, they went whatever. Those become all excused absences.
Well, there's a list here of
Approved,
acceptable excuses. It's right here under the very first thing. An excused absence or a valid excuse is one that results from illness, which may be either mental or physical, death of a family member, an approved school activity, and any other reason established by the district as valid. So there is some subjectivity there. Which is good, because there's a little wiggle room, because there are situations that come up that you would never see on a list like this that need to be considered and taken into account.
But it's also kind of bad because it's subjective. Because like, what if I think it's a good rule and you don't, or a reason?
But granting permission or granting acceptance sets precedence too. And so subjectivity diminishes over time because you start narrowing what you have granted for excuses in the past and what you haven't granted.
But what if they have granted an unrealistic?
Well,
You know, I just think that's.
then we have Micah go visit with them.
But the alternative, in my view, is that you have a finite list that is impossible to maintain, because there's always a scenario that nobody ever thought of when they were making the list.
The other thing goes back to the way we started to track these two in the schools, because we feel that whether it's unexcused or excused, missing school harms the kids' educational experience. And so what we've done is, rather than going off of a number or a type, we just go off of a percentage. And once you've missed more than 10% of school, we start communication with parents. And so sometimes it's just a phone call and a conversation, and parents realize, oh my gosh, those added up. I mean, I was just taking in here and there, and I didn't realize that we had missed so much school, and a lot will back off and keep their kids in school. So it really, to me, it's not as important, because if we had a list of 4 things you could excuse your kids for, the notes would read whatever we asked them to. The absences themselves wouldn't change, the notes would change, but the parents would comply with whatever our list was. If we said you had to be sick, then every note would say they were sick. So it's less important to me what the list is here, and more important that we're communicating with parents, we're reaching out after that 10%, we're trying to figure out why they're missing school. There's something we can do to intervene. Is there problems going on with peers or a teacher? So I think the conversations that happen after it's kind of flagged to be the 10% are way more important than whatever the list is for the parent to write.
All right, Micah, quit bringing us back to what's important here.
Because it does come down to the time.
What's that?
I think you're right. I think essentially it's the time.
All right, again, is there a motion then to approve as a first reading, policy 509?
I move that we accept as a first reading policy 509 as presented.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? With none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is unanimous. Okay. Consent agenda. Any concerns with the consent agenda? Darren, do we have any concerns with the consent agenda?
I know.
Okay,
If I could make a correction to the minutes. Sorry. Let's see, get to the minutes of July 15. View minutes, there we go. Reading through these. This is the all-day meeting we had. We started at 8:45. Talks about the people who were there, except we're missing the representative from the Teachers Association. And that discussion. I don't know if you want to have her input as part of the discussion, but we ought to for sure have that she was there.
Hey, thanks, Jeff.
that's why we've got.
Gotta give you credit.
Oh, I did last time, not this time.
Okay, so with the noted amendment to the minutes is, including the noted amendment to the minutes, is there
No, that's good. Okay.
is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
With the change to the minutes, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Lee, here's your chance.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? That can't be on a consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is unanimous. Okay, anything else that concerns the board?
Once we hired a coach who wasn't 21, are all of these people 21 on the new hire list?
Do they have to be 21?
We did, that was one of the issues at the time, that they had to be 21.
Well, we had to have one that was there as the chaperone was
Right.
21.
And that's what I'm asking about the new hire.
Oh.
Is that person 21? Because it caused an issue previously, so I don't know.
Is it an assistant or is it the?
It's your coach.
I'm gonna have to pull it up, I'm sorry.
It had to
I
do with
think
like
the issue
chaperoning.
is not if the coach was over 21, but if that coach is can't be left alone with the kids if they're not 21.
And they usually are the only person there.
There was concern
Tammy, is
about
that right?
traveling
Coach?
and
That's-
traveling with
that's
the
right.
team and that age.
Yeah, it was traveling and
Right, it
we
was
couldn't be the
travel.
chaperone, we couldn't be left alone if they're
Yeah,
not.
I was thinking some.
So it's an assistant coach, so I think we're okay.
Yeah, I
I
believe
think we're okay as long as we have
Not alone.
not alone. Okay, anything else, board? Lee? Our next board meeting is scheduled for September 9th. Oh, whoa, this weekend
Oh,
is
yeah.
our delegate assembly this weekend. They've changed the location from the headquarters of the USBA to Canyon School District.
So their auditoriums, they can
Yes, so
spread
we
you out.
can get bigger and spread out a little bit.
And you
Now-
can attend virtually through Zoom.
Yeah, they have it Zoom so you can attend, but every single board member is encouraged to go. But we need to designate one of our board members as the voting board member that is attending either through Zoom or there. Jeff, are you planning on going?
I am the regional.
You're the regional delegate?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm planning on going. Lee?
No, I won't be attending.
Okay.
And I'm not sure who
I think you should do it. I'm not ready I'm not ready for
Oh,
that.
man, that's what we need.
But I want to talk to you about some training.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so.
We don't do
were you
that.
planning on attending?
I will try, yeah. I mean, I wasn't really sure
Okay,
about
so that, Heather, looks like we need 3 rooms.
No, I'm.
Okay,
I'm gonna do-
I'm gonna do
I'm
Zoom.
gonna
I'm
do
gonna
Zoom.
do it.
You're
You're gonna do Zoom?
I'm gonna
Zoom.
Zoom?
Yeah,
I might as well do Zoom too then.
there's just no reason to go.
That's what I
because
have planned on
there's-
doing as well.
Okay,
there's
all
gonna be
right,
so
we'll
many
just all do
people
Zoom then. That's a
in the
good idea.
distance.
Do we
Okay,
have to register for that, or will they just send us the link for?
You should be getting
we should be,
something in the
you've been
mail
getting the
and
information,
an
haven't you?
email.
Did we tell
She
you?
might not be
I was
on
gonna
the
say,
email
did we tell
list.
USDA to do?
Yeah, will you call them and get them on there?
Thank you. I'm only getting the emails from Lance.
Yeah, my packet came this week in the mail.
Yeah, right.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
I will move that we go home.
Been moved, we are adjourned.
Okay, it's 6:30.
Yeah, look at that. 6:27, someone knows the world.